Taiwan slams a speech by China's leader vowing unification with Taiwan. More international support for Taiwan. A former Australian Prime Minister wants to let Beijing know Taiwan has friends. And we take a look at a colorful contenders getting ready to fight for the Philippines presidency. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Taiwan has slammed a speech by Chinese President Xi Jinping on Saturday in which he said unification with Taiwan must and will be realized. In Beijing's Great Hall of the People, Xi vowed what he called peaceful reunification with Taiwan. He did not directly mention the use of force amid high tensions between the two sides. Taiwan's presidential office spokesman Xavier Zhang said in response that Taiwan is a sovereign and independent country. He said that Xi's speech ignores the views of the Taiwanese people who want Taiwan's democratic way of life and freedoms to continue. In the face of pressure from Beijing, Taiwan received some big support from the international community on Friday from a former Australian Prime Minister and a group of French senators who were all visiting Taiwan. Reporter William Yan has more.
Former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott speaks to a room full of journalists in Taipei. He's here for the annual Yushan Forum, which builds bridges between Taiwan and neighboring countries. But in his keynote address, Abbott had harsh words for one of Taiwan's closest neighbors, China. He condemned Beijing for its aggression and for weaponizing trade. In a 5-day period following China's National Day on October 1st, the People's Liberation Army flew 150 warplanes into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. TaiwanPlus asked Abbott whether Australia would come to Taiwan's defense if attacked by China. But the former Australian leader focused instead on prevention.
The best way to ensure that the conflict none of us want and would be a catastrophe for everyone is to let Beijing know that Taiwan has friends.
Abbott says the best way to do that is to work with allies like the United States to ensure there is order in the region which can protect the freedom of people in Taiwan.
To intensify what we're already doing, which is sailing, patrolling Australian naval elements in the South China Sea, the East China Sea and the Straits of Taiwan.
Support for Taiwan also came on Friday from French Senator Alain Richard, a former defense minister. He is in Taiwan at the head of a delegation of French senators. He called recent Chinese warplanes near Taiwan the most serious threat to regional stability in a long time.
Les incursions aériennes qui se sont multipliées ces derniers mois sont un message de la part du pouvoir de Pékin de menace d'action militaire en direction de Taïwan. Ce message est, je crois, parfaitement compris, non seulement par les Taïwanais, mais aussi par toutes les puissances attachées à la stabilité dans la région.
Richard says France wants to play a role in maintaining regional peace.
France has been contributor to operations of free navigation, especially in this area, very close to Taiwan. We also want to have exchanges of information and of strategic discussions with most significant powers in the area.
Taiwan's defense ministry has been sending out announcements of Chinese warplane incursions into the island's air defense identification zone almost daily since September. But no announcements of incursions have been made since the foreign dignitaries arrived in Taiwan on October 5th. Klein Wang and William Yan for TaiwanPlus.
At least 100 people are dead or injured after an explosion in a mosque in northern Afghanistan. An explosion went off during Friday noon prayers at a Shiite mosque in Kunduz. Police say the attack may have been carried out by a suicide bomber who mingled with worshippers at a time when a mosque was particularly crowded. An Islamic State affiliate group has claimed responsibility for the attack. It said it targeted both Shiites and the Taliban for their purported willingness to expel Uyghurs. This year's Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded to two journalists. One of them is Dmitry Muratov of Russia. The other is Maria Ressa of the Philippines, who has been arrested trying to uphold the freedom of speech in her country.
In less than 2 years, the Philippine government has filed 10 arrest warrants against me. I've had to post bail 10 times in less than 2 years. Ano ba? Patrabahuhin niyo na ako, di ba? Please just let us do our work. There's a lot of work to be done with coronavirus.
In 2012, Ressa co-founded a news site called Rappler, which puts the focus on Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte's controversial reign of power. The other journalist, Dmitry Muratov, co-founded the independent Russian newspaper Novaya Gazeta in 1993. The publication does pieces that are critical of the Kremlin. A world-renowned boxer, a former TV and film star, the son of a former dictator. Those are just some of the candidates vying for the seat of Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte in next year's elections. He's barred from standing for a second term. TaiwanPlus reporter Luis Watt takes a look at the main contenders in the ring.
4 contenders top the opinion polls. Let's see how they're shaping up for the presidency. First up, Manny Pacquiao. The 8-division world champion is arguably one of the best boxers of all time. Last month, he announced his retirement from the ring, but he's already a politician. He is a Philippine senator and a former ally of President Rodrigo Duterte. But in July, Pacquiao was voted out as leader of Duterte's ruling party after accusing the president of being too soft on China and not tough enough on corruption. Pacquiao has been fighting since he was a child, forging a way out of poverty to become a boxing legend and one of the world's highest paid athletes. Now he faces a new fight for the presidency, and poverty is at the heart of it.
Ang aking pong pagtakbo ay hindi lamang para sa aking sarili o sa aking pamilya, kundi para sa sambayanang Pilipino. Para po mabigyan ng magandang kinabukasan ang ating mga kababayan. Lalong-lalo na sa itong paghihirap na matagal nang iniinda ng sambayanang Pilipino. Kailangan po nating tuldukan ang sitwasyon ng kanilang pamumuhay, especially yung ekonomiya natin para palaguin.
Next up, Isko Moreno. Like Pacquiao, the mayor of the capital city Manila grew up in poverty. As a child, he scavenged through piles of rubbish for leftovers for his family to eat. As a teenager, he was spotted by a talent scout and became an actor in films and TV dramas. He stayed close to his Manila roots and entered politics as a local councillor. He has criticized the Duterte government's response to the pandemic. He announced his candidacy at a school in the slum area where he grew up.
I have pulled myself out of the gutter with no daddy war box helping me alone. Huwag pahirapan ang mga mahihirap. You give them red carpet treatment, not red tape.
Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. Marcos was a boy when his father, Ferdinand Marcos, came to power in the Philippines. After a 23-year rule, the dictator was ousted in a people's uprising in 1986. The whole family had to go into exile in Hawaii, including Bongbong's mother, Imelda Marcos, known for her extravagant shoe collection. In 1991, Bongbong came back to the Philippines and entered politics. Most recently, he was a senator. His run for the presidency has angered some because of his links with the past. On Wednesday, protesters burned effigies of Bongbong and President Duterte, an ally of the Marcos family. Marcos says he is offering a unifying brand of leadership that can heal the country after its COVID-19 crisis. Sara Duterte Carpio. Most eyes are on Sara Duterte Carpio, the mayor of the Philippines' third largest city, Davao. She says she doesn't plan to stand for president, but that hasn't tamped down expectations that she will. Her father is current President Rodrigo Duterte, who is not allowed to serve a second term. Observers say a President Duterte Carpio would help protect him from charges related to his drug war, which rights groups estimate has killed tens of thousands of people. Sara is the most popular potential candidate, according to opinion polls, all of which makes the winner highly uncertain and a match to watch. Chris Ma and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
As far as foreign policy goes, one of the questions is how will the candidates manage the Philippines' relationship with China? Analyst Enrico Cao, an associate researcher at the Taiwan Center for International Strategic Studies, said whoever takes over from Duterte will drive a different relationship with China.
They will have to change tune compared to President Duterte because the geopolitical landscape outside has changed. Of course, the approach that President Duterte had vis-a-vis to China didn't bring the benefits that President Duterte was hoping to have from his proximity to China. What is sure is that the next candidate will have to cope with an entirely different landscape in terms of geopolitical situation in both regionally and globally. With China, support is crumbling slowly. There is a decoupling going on a global level. It's very hard to imagine that this won't have an effect, a quite strong effect on the regional security architecture, of which Philippines is a key element, not only for Philippines itself, but also for example, when it comes to the defense of Taiwan. They are the closest country to Taiwan. What I expect actually is edging, basically. They will try to balance between the usual necessity for security from the United States and their allies, and the need to keep China in the loop when it comes to business and development, because China is a prime partner, economic partner for the Philippines. That's very important too.
Stay with us. We find out why people in the Philippines have been getting their pets blessed.
Taiwan 最有人情味的地方。
Welcome back to TaiwanPlus News. A reminder of our top story. Taiwan has slammed a speech by Chinese President Xi Jinping in which he said that unification with Taiwan must and will be realized. Taipei responded, saying that Taiwan is a sovereign and independent country. On Sunday, October 10th, Taiwan celebrates its National Day, known locally as Double 10 Day. But is this date really the nation's birthday? TaiwanPlus's In Kavat explains.
Taiwan's National Day is celebrated in front of the presidential office building in Taipei every year. But what is the significance of the date, October 10th? For the answer, we need to go back more than a century and to the town of Wuchang in China. October 10th, 1911 would become known as the start of the Wuchang Uprising. On that day, revolutionaries pushing for the end to the Chinese Empire took control of Wuchang. Other provincial towns quickly fell and led to the overthrow of the Qing dynasty. Eventually, the Republic of China, or ROC, was established on January 1st, 1912 by the Chinese Nationalist Party, known as the Kuomintang. But how did the Republic of China get to Taiwan? After the Chinese Nationalist Party lost the Civil War to the Communists in 1949, they fled to Taiwan. The Nationalists brought the ROC government, flag and National Day from across the Taiwan Strait. Yet Taiwan had an extensive history and diverse populations in the country well before 1949. This means that debate still continues over the legitimacy of the ROC to represent all of Taiwan. David Chang, Bill Kong, and Ian Kavat for TaiwanPlus.
To discuss whether the ROC National Day represents Taiwan, TaiwanPlus spoke to Liu Wen, an associate professor of sociology at National Taiwan University. Liu began by explaining the differences between National Day and Taiwan Day.
If we really think about it clearly, the kind of aesthetics, mission, and meanings that the celebration of ROC is portraying, right? It's about the glory of a new Chinese regime versus the celebration of a Taiwan Day. It really has really profound different meanings, right? One is about the extensions of Chineseness, whether it's democracy or authoritarian regime, and another one is a way to break through that history, right? Wanting to establish a new kinds of connections of Taiwan in the world. So even though it is celebrating on the same day and we still use Taiwan ROC together, I do think it carries very significantly different cultural meanings.
Have Taiwanese feelings towards National Day changed over the past sort of 50, 60 years?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's actually changed quite a lot. I would say from my parents' generation, growing up under martial law, the National Day was a day of celebrating the authoritarian leader, right? And even under, democratized period, like under President Ma Ying-jeou, that idea was still very much about the birth of Republic of China. But what's really changed significantly is post-2016 under Tsai Ing-wen's administration. I remember in the National Day in 2016, she particularly brought into this idea of Taiwan in the world, so 世界中的 Taiwan. So the question was last framed around the ROC versus the PRC, right, the People's Republic of China, or the cross-strait relation, but really how do Taiwan assert itself, right, as a modern nation in a world that has different forms of international relationship. So I definitely think that the idea of National Day has changed quite a lot, particularly in my generation. Thinking about Taiwan's nationalism is more about international engagement. It's about its internal cultural and ethnic diversity and different kinds of inclusion, right, including sexual minorities. And I think that became the core of how nationalism is celebrated today.
Taiwan may be known as a high-tech powerhouse, but it also values traditional arts. And despite the pandemic, there have been more contenders this year for the country's biggest traditional arts and music awards. William Yan reports.
A juggler magically suspends his crystal ball in the air. This is just one of Taiwan's traditional performing arts. Entries for the 32nd Golden Melody Awards for Traditional Arts and Music have increased this year, despite a local COVID-19 outbreak in mid-May. The award ceremony recognizes excellence in traditional arts and music in Taiwan.
这次有882件来投件，比去年增加，在疫情的状况之下，还比去年增加在240件，这是好消息，可以让大家更看到这片土地长出来的传统艺术，它具有盎然铿锵的生命力，还有不妥协的勇气，这就是我们希望这次的传艺金曲奖主题所传达的理念。
The awards receive strong support from the government.
所以台湾的传统艺术呢，也跟着传统价值的改变，我们也与时俱进，所以呢，产生的一些转化创新，使得我们的传统艺术有更美好的美学。
The ceremony takes place on October 9th in Taipei.
Animal lovers in the Philippines were keen to celebrate this week's World Animal Day and a Catholic feast of St. Francis Assisi. To avoid massive crowds, they organized a clever, socially distanced ceremony so their animals could be blessed. Bing Wong explains.
Who let the dogs out? Well, no one yet. These dogs are still stuck inside their owners' cars to ensure social distancing during the pandemic. But that's not stopping any pet lovers from celebrating World Animal Day and the Feast of St. Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of animals. The animals are taken to a drive-thru ceremony to get blessed by a Catholic priest. Big dogs, small dogs, fluffy dogs, dogs with bows on their heads, and even families of dogs all wait patiently to be sprinkled with holy water.
Kasi pandemic, kasi gusto ko rin safe sila, healthy rin, tsaka family sila, kaya dapat blessed din sila.
The Philippines has been hit hard by COVID-19, with at least 2.6 million cases and more than 38,000 deaths. With a large number of COVID cases, residents are doing whatever they can to keep themselves and their families safe while maintaining the spirit of Francis of Assisi.
Well, ongoing yung pandemic and there's no way we'll say no to this kind of celebration because animals are very important to us. This is how we show our love to our pets. It's like our kids, so we thought of let's do it once again. So this time around, we make sure that all the things are all about the safety and security of the pet parents and also their pet.
Spain colonized the Philippines in the 16th century and maintained its hold until 1898. During its conquest, the Spanish brought Catholicism to the Asian country. Now, 86% of the population in the Philippines identify as Catholic. Since many consider their pets as family, this socially distanced drive-thru is truly a blessing. Bing Wong for TaiwanPlus.
A Russian man is attempting to revive a 1,000-year-old tradition of tracking down and harvesting wild honey. Ildar Yagafarov inherited the ancient skills from his grandfather at the age of 13. Every autumn, the wild honey hunter travels to secret locations only known to his family. Some of the hives are centuries old and have been tapped for honey for nearly 200 years. But as the honey hunting tradition faded, many of the known hives have been forgotten. The world's coral reefs are disappearing as climate change warms their natural habitats. A study by the Global Coral Reef Monitoring Network says 14% of the planet's coral reefs have now been lost. Overfishing, unsustainable coastal development, and declining water quality are other factors battering the reefs. Recent efforts to support coral reefs use technology that mimics the design and shape of natural reefs. This helps provide opportunities for colonization by corals and other marine life. Thanks for watching Taiwan Plus News. We leave you with images of old Irish goats roaming on the coast of Dublin. By eating the highly flammable grass, the goats, once on the verge of extinction, help prevent wildfires and restore biodiversity. Check out the Taiwan Plus app for this show and more. Stay safe and see you next time.